Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we shall continue with our Rupa class. And last week we discussed how Rupas can be observed, known through the Kalapa. First we conventionally accept the fact that there is a Kalapa, and then we move on to understand how the four great elements are found in them. Before the last week we discussed how Rupa Kalapa is made out of the four great realities, four great elements. So that was a different approach. We are coming from inside to out, from in to out. It's like we study the four great realities first, and then we understand how the Kalapa is formed with them. In the previous week we discussed how we first get into the Kalapa and we understand how do we understand the realities in them. So it was a different approach. And then also we discussed about the oneness and variousness in a Kalapa, because each and every Rupa in a Kalapa are different from each other because they possess their unique characteristics and unique functions. They perform unique functions. At the same time, they act as a one unit. So their arising is the same, their vanishing is the same, they occupy the same space, and they have the same base, same dependence. And yeah, so they were the main characteristics of them manifesting or acting as a one unit. That was the oneness, Ekatta Bhava. Nanatta Bhava was they were separate entities even though they exist together. It was like a company working. Company consists of various nationalities. The entire company working as a one unit work for the achievement of a single goal, maybe the profit or to serve the country or the society. But at the same time, though they work together, they manifest different personalities. They are different human beings. They have different cultural preferences and sentiments. So likewise, the Rupas in a Kalapa are different from each other, but when they are acting together, when they are found together, they act as a one unit. That was our previous lecture, last lecture. So today we are going to, then also we introduced a new idea called Rupa Sarira, the bodies of Rupas. We have already discussed about the Rupas, matter to a certain extent, and then the units of Rupas, how they exist in certain clusters or units, small units. Then now we are talking about groups of units. They form, when coming together, they form Rupa Sarira. Sarira means bodies. And now after that today we are going to discuss about how the four great elements are found in these Rupas, how these Rupas are made out of four great elements. So these also we can say approach from inside to outside. So after discussing how the four great elements are found in the Rupas, we also have a glance on how can we understand the four great elements through a Sarira. So today's today I shall be explaining something quite new to our tradition, which is called interunitary forces. So which I would in Pali would call Antarkalapiya, four great elements. The four great elements that can be found within the Kalapas, not inside the Kalapa. How they can be, how their effects can be felt. So that will be something some can say as a controversial topic. But anyway, so I would also like to inform that this idea that I'm going to discuss today is purely one of my ideas looking into the doctrine, how I see the four great elements, and I try to bring evidences as much as possible from the doctrine to prove this. So it will be an interesting topic today and tomorrow. Anyway, so our main focus will be, today's main focus we call interunitary. Unitary comes from unit. Unit is a Kalapa. Kalapa means a certain cluster of Rupas. Interunitary four elements, great elements. So unitary is related to the units. So inter means they are like you take a group of units and the great elements can be found, their effects can be found within them. That is our main focus today. So I was able to distribute a handout yesterday night. Existence of 4 great elements in Rupa Sarira. So we also previously we discussed what is a Sarira. Sarira is a group of kalapas. When groups of kalapas are stuck together as a one unit, that is called a Rupa Sarira. It's called a body of Rupa. I think we came from Rupa, if you remember the last week, Rupa to Rupa Kalapa. Then we came to Rupa Sarira. Rupa Sarira out of Kalapas, and also we can have Rupa Santana. Then out of Kalapas we have Rupa Santati. These are our focuses in this chapter. We shall discuss about Rupas separately. At the same time, we may also discuss about some Kalapas and how the generation of Kalapas exists. This is Santati, is the generation of Kalapas. T-A-T-I, not H, T-A-T-I, Santati. Then, with the gathering of Kalapas, we get the Rupa Sariras, and sometimes Rupa Sariras act as Rupa Santana, as a one unit which has interrelationship, right? So, the Sarira means a gathering of Kalapas. We may come into Santanas when we start to discuss about the origin of Rupa. So, in order to explain the 4 great elements, we have to discuss about Kalapa, but it was not sufficient enough. Otherwise, we may not have a exhaustive comprehension, like a very comprehensive idea about how the 4 great elements exist. So, therefore, we have to discuss about Sarira. Santana is not that much necessary, especially when we want to discuss about the Oja Rupa and the function of Jivitendriya. We have to have the idea of a Santana. Then, so Sarira is a collection of Kalapas. Now, in these Sariras, the 4 great elements exhibit. They do exercise their functions, so abilities, beyond the limits of the Kalapas. That's the point. Beyond the limits of the Kalapas. Now, we imagine that the Kalapa is something like a globe, like a ball, and their forces can be felt inside. If you remember, we mentioned Apo holds them inside. I think it's too dark to be seen. It's a force that holds the entire hardness. Hardness is the main substantial, gives the quality that which gives the main substantial quality. Then it is pushed away by Vayu, so it gets extended, and it is protected or given the strength by Tejo. So this is how we roughly explain the Kalapa, how the things, how the 4 great elements can be found within Kalapa. Then we can also understand, now when a Kalapa with abundant Tejo, for instance, with abundant Tejo, the heat element, gets closer to another Kalapa. If it gets closer, even if it touches, doesn't matter. If then they get closer to each other, what happens is, due to the effect of this Kalapa, due to its effect, the Tejo of this Kalapa starts to increase. The Tejo of the next Kalapa increases. That's how what happens when you bring fire close to a candle. The Tejo of the candle increases. So what does it mean? What was the reason for the increasement? That was the high Tejo in the Kalapa A. If we name this as Kalapa A and B, Kalapa A had a intense Tejo, higher level of Tejo than the Kalapa B. So when it gets closer, what happens? The Tejo of the Kalapa B increases. What does this suggest? Tejo of the Kalapa A, and also it reduces, according to science, of the Tejo of the Kalapa A reduces, has to reduce because of the preservation of energy, the law of preservation of energy. Anyway, so when this Kalapa A is closer to B, due to the effect of this Tejo, the amount of Tejo increases. And even they are touched with each other, according to the Theravada. Even they are touched with each other. touched each other. Even they have touched each other. But still, each kalapa has its own existence. It has own limitations. They never become one, having merged. So it shows that they have their own borders. They have their own limitation. If the B, the teja of the B increases due to A, it shows that teja of A has an effect on B. It shows that teja of A has affected beyond its borders. So it doesn't, I'm not bold enough to say that the teja moves from here to here. Somehow, I'm unable to explain how it happens according to Theravada. Somehow, the effect of teja A, the effect of the teja of the kalapa A is felt to the teja B. Or it has affected teja B beyond her borders. That is one example that it shows that these 4 great elements do affect the other kalapas. Another example, this example, someone can have another alternative explanation for this. If A comes and hits B, A is a moving object, moving kalapa. If it is moving, we explain the vayo is higher. That's why it moves, right? There's a certain kind of a motion in it. It's pushed by vayo. Then, after the striking, vayo of this kalapa increases and it happens to move, right? It shows that the vayo of the previous kalapa has an effect on the vayo of the next kalapa. Someone can say it's affected by the patavi of the previous kalapa. Anyway, we can have 2 alternatives to that. That is because of the striking, it's due to the patavi, or because of its motion, whatever. I'll take that it has motion here. Due to the vayo of the B increases and it starts to move. It shows that the vayo affects beyond her borders. Then the next example is when kalapas, even separated by the space, exist together in a one body as a one unit. It's not easy to separate these kalapas from each other. Why is that? We know that the kalapa cannot be broken into its pieces. It's a one unit, inseparable unit. But still, 2 kalapas which are close together are also inseparable, not easily separable. So we normally say, now the Mahasi Sayadaw has, I think in the Mahasi books, I'm not sure whether Sayadaw it was found in the Burmese book, but in a Sinhalese explanation on that, we find that a yogi feels why. Now when the stomach is being pushed up and down, he feels the hardness there. He feels the pushing nature. He feels the heat and coldness. And why the rupas in this stomach are not scattering, why they are held together in a certain shape, which we call the stomach, is due to apo. He feels that the bonding nature is apo. We explained that apo within a kalapa holds the remaining rupas and confines it to a certain area of space. At the same time, within a rupa body of rupa, material body, even the clusters of kalapas are kept together by the same force. So it shows that this force is something that affects beyond the borders of the kalapa. They are attracted to each other. So this kalapa is attracted to this due to this kalapa, and it is attracted to this. That is due to the apo. This attraction 1 is due to the apo 1, and this attraction 2 is due to the apo 2 of this other kalapa. So each and every kalapa is attracting each other. There's certain kind of a bonding force Even in scientifically, electrons and protons, they do have that bonding force. And also, two atoms are also connected with each other. They also have a certain kind of a bondage within them. So this is how, by certain theras, when they explain about, especially why this body is not scattering in the space. That is due. Because if we only think about the Rupa Kalapa, and if the forces are confined, to this range, and if it doesn't have any effect, we know that another Kalapa, separated by space, has no whatsoever reason to be kept closer to this. We should not have any disturbance or any burden in separating them, because they are not the same. They are different units. But it is obvious that these units are kept together. These units are kept in one place. So that's why in the observation, in the meditation, we find that normally it says why this body is not scattering, why the hardness of this body is not scattering in the space. That's due to the bonding nature. So this bonding nature, which explains in the books, cannot be the apo which exists within a kalapa. If so, rupas within this range are held. It cannot be a reason for these two kalapas to stay together. If apo is only affecting in this range, right? There is no reason for this kalapa to stick to each other and to be as a one unit, right? So it shows that this suggests that the apo, if the book says that this is apo which holds the body together. So what is this apo they have suggested? It has to be the apo which affects beyond the limits of the kalapa. So that's why I would call them, these kinds of effects, I would name them as antarkalapi. Antarkalapi. If we use the Sanskrit word, it had to be antah. Antah kalapi. Antarkalapiya Mahabhuta. Right. It shows that the four great elements affect beyond the kalapa. So that was our introduction to today's lecture. So based on these evidences, I have given 3 evidences on that. So we may proceed to discuss what are these. Today we shall discuss about apo and vayu. Apo. Apo is the cohesion. Cohesion within. So I shall name the apo within the kalapa as kalapi apo, and then the apo which affects beyond her border, beyond the kalapa is called antarkalapi. Antarkalapi apo. Yeah, so we shall go into the handout. Kalapiya apo, apo inside a kalapa. Rupa in a kalapa has confined, rupas in a kalapa confined to a limited space due to the cohesion of apo. Why a kalapa? I think we discussed this in detail for many times. Why the rupas in a kalapa are confined to this space? That is because apo is holding them. We will be unable to explain it very, very clearly, lucidly, but somehow these rupas are kept in one area. That is due to a certain bonding force, a force which holds them. So that is apo within a kalapa. Now we come into antarkalapi apo. Antarkalapiya apo is specifically in a body of rupas which are together, made out of units close together. These rupa, it is not easy to separate them. So they are bonded with each other. It's like they are attracted to each other. There's a certain bonding force. This bonding force I would call as Antarkalapiya apo. It means an apo that exists within the kalapas, So I shall read that paragraph. It is obvious that kalapas within one single material body are not easily separable. The reason is their mutual attraction. There is a certain mutual attraction. This attraction is apo, and it is a force that is not confined to the kalapa but something of which the effects are seen beyond the limits of a kalapa. Its effects can be seen beyond the limits. It's not something confined to the kalapa. Owing to this bonding nature, kalapas in a material body do not get scattered in the space. Rupas within a kalapa are not scattered because of apo, kalapiya apo. Then the kalapas in a body are not scattered because of antarkalapiya apo. These are two different aspects. I'll repeat again. Rupas in a one cluster, one unit, doesn't get scattered in the space. Why? They are held together by apo within the kalapa. Then rupas in a material body are not scattered, doesn't get scattered in the space. Why? Even these kalapas are held together by this bonding force. So if this is a body of rupa, these kalapas are held together by a certain force. That force cannot be the apo which exists within a kalapa. It cannot be this force because it is holding, because it is something inside. It is a force that works inside the kalapa. So the same has affected the other kalapas. So if someone can say it has a certain range, if someone wants. Apo has a certain range. So anything that comes into that range are held. But still, someone can ask a question, because the next point is, there is a oneness in this unit, because even if a rupa of another material body gets close to this, still they are not bounded as the material stuff within that same body. Right? Within that same body. It means now rupa kalapas of this podium are connected with each other. They are attracted to each other. So even the outer layer, the furthermost rupa kalapas of this surface are bound to the kalapas below them, like the two layers, the furthermost two layers. But even this kalapas of this phone is kept closer to this surface, the outer surface. They are not bonded with it. They don't get binded with each other. They can be easily separated. But it's quite hard to separate kalapas from this surface. Right? So it shows that within the body, they are mutually attracted. But it doesn't apply to the kalapas of a different body. That's why it can be easily separable. Right? So that's another point. This force of apo it's from the fourth line. This force of apo is observable only within the kalapas of the material body and not between kalapas at the edge of the body and kalapas located on the at the edge of the body, kalapas located on the body, but belongs to another body. So I mean the sentence may not it can be a little messy. So the idea I wanted to explain was, now if this is the corner kalapas of a chair, these kalapas are mutually attracted, but kalapas of another body, even they are brought close to this surface. They are bounded with each other as separate body. We don't see a bondage here. That's why it can be separable. So that is the main reason to say a sarira is a one unit. This is the oneness of a sarira. Basically the most prominent factor of a sarira. They act as a one unit. Kalapas of that body are connected, are attracted to each other and acting as a one thing. Like the rupas in a one kalapa. So that is, this force is, I would call, interunitary apo. States, then the question comes, a contradiction arises with this. Why is that? This interunitary apo, when it is stronger, now we normally say apo is higher in liquids. Right? Apo is high in liquids. The intensity of apo is higher. So it's very clear, obviously clear, when this interunitary apo, so-called interunitary apo, which I named, this interunitary apo, when this is higher, interunitary, that is antarkalapiya. When this force is higher, the rupa kalapas tend to get closer, stays closer and bound strongly. So the body appears to be a solid. More the force is stronger, the body is solid. And when the force is getting weaker, the body starts to melt and become a liquid. And it is much weaker, it becomes a air. And it's also, that's how the science explains the states of mind, states of the matter. The thing is, now when this kalapa, this force, the interunitary apo is stronger, it becomes a solid. But when it reduces, what happens? When this force reduces, these kalapas tend to, their connection become bit loosey. So they starts to move as a liquid. What happens is, to my idea, my understanding, the liquidity which is the main component of apo, as the Buddha has explained, the quality which oozes, which flows, the liquidity, the liquid quality is the main component, main candidate of apo. So when this in antarkalapi, interunitary apo is weaker, the body manifests a new quality, the liquidity. Scientifically, in the reductionist theory, there's nothing called liquidity other than the weak bonding of the matter, other than the weak bonding among the atoms. But it is obvious that the flowing nature can be observed with mind, can be observed with wisdom. It is something that can be felt. It's not an illusion. So what I personally feel is that this flowing nature, I'm not talking about the interkalapiya bond. I'm not talking about the interunitary bondage. When the bondage gets weakened, we see a liquid quality within it, not a solid nature. This is also a part of apo. Scientifically, one may argue that it is something reduced to the now, especially the when we talk about the water, the interatomic bond lessens, and also there are hydrogen bonds. The atoms are connected with each other. So there is another type of a bondage. Normal matter has the strong bondage with each other, which makes them solid. When it comes to, for instance, ice becomes water, there is a hydrogen bond. And also we call it polar bonds normally, the polar bonds. Polar bonds means the atoms, even though a combination of huh? Right. The combination of the atoms, the compounds are made. So even the two compound molecules are interacting with each other. As there's a certain kind of a polar bond we call. We have three types of bonding according to chemistry: ionic bonds, covalent bonds, and polar bonds. So in the liquids we can see the polar bonds. We can obviously see that is because of these polar bonds, they do not become the gas. They do not become gas. But collectively speaking, the bondage of solid is higher than the liquid, according to chemistry, the states of matter. But still, in the liquid state, we can clearly observe some sort of a quality called liquidity. So when we are talking about the ultimate realities, realities are the natures that can be felt with the wisdom, that can be observed with our wisdom, something that cannot be reduced. So it is possible that the liquidity, the reason for liquidity, one may say, is the lessening of the inter bondage between atoms. That is the reason for liquidity. But you cannot reduce the liquidity into its components. It is something, I feel it as a natural ultimate quality. So therefore, when the interrelation between the rupas, kalapas reduces, the attraction reduces, there appears a new sort of a quality called the liquidity quality. Now the question one can ask, isn't this apo should be confined to the kalapa according to Patthana? Yes, according to what it says, we have no idea about these, there's no explanation about this inter-kalapiya 4 great elements. Should it be confined to kalapa? Then what happens? How do you explain the liquidity? I see no logic behind if you say a kalapa is liquid. Is it the kalapa oozing, or it doesn't have any specific shape? Because the liquids doesn't have a specific shape. If you are telling that the entire kalapa is with more apo, it means like the kalapa has to come into this kind of a shape, because it would start to change its shape, because it cannot be like that. If the kalapa doesn't manifest such a quality, how could the body manifest such a quality? Because we know the liquid doesn't have a specific shape. It takes the shape of the thing, of the volume it is in. If the volume is a shape of a beaker, the water takes its shape. If the volume is the shape of a cube, it comes into a cubic shape. Whatever you put, the liquid takes its shape. So if the liquidity is found within a kalapa, the shape of the kalapa should also change. Someone can say, can't it be? Yes, there's no evidence to say that specifically it cannot be. But personally what I feel is, my personal opinion, this liquidity is not found in a kalapa. It is a quality that can be observed within a body of kalapas, body of matter. So when this bonding, the bonding between kalapas are lessening, we observe this liquidity, and liquidity according to Buddhism is an ultimate quality. It cannot be reduced into its component. We can say its causes, but not its component, how it is made. So that is the state of matter, how it is related. And then we also come into another quality with them. When these bonding is stronger within the kalapas, if it creates a certain kind of a resistance, like it creates a certain kind of a field which prevents the entering of another hard substance. The kalapa itself has the hardness. It prevented another kalapa entering into its space. At the same time, we know, even in a body of kalapas, it's quite harder for another material to go through, even though there are spaces between them. Even though there are spaces between the kalapas, it's hard for another dense kalapa to go in. This has been scientifically mentioned. And we can also feel it. We can also see it. We also know why a certain body of kalapas, when another body is kept upon it, another body of kalapas are kept upon it. We know that there is a space between these two. There's akasa dhatu. In some cases, they may be touched if they are very densely packed, according to the commentary of the Dhammasangani and also the sub-commentators. There are places that the kalapas are touching each other, but in most of the cases, there is a gap between kalapas. Rerukani Mahanayaka Thera, the very prominent Abhidhamma scholar in Sri Lanka, explained that imagine like a herd of bees. Herd of bees travel, they have their individual space, but they are not touching each other, they are separate from each other. So likewise, the kalapas in a body are separate from each other. There are spaces in between them. They are held together by this bonding force. At the same time, it prevents the entering of another kalapa into this space even. That is because there is a certain kind of a resistance arising. This is called, I would call it, antarkalapiya patavi. So this antarkalapiya patavi makes the two bodies to stand upon each other. It is also a patavi that can be felt beyond the kalapa. Yeah, so these are the points that I would like to talk about apo. Then I may move on to vayu. It's quite easy to understand, not that much difficult. So we have two types of vayu, kalapiya vayu. Kalapiya vayu is the force that pushes the hardness outside and the kalapa gets extended. Kalapa gets extended. Then the antarkalapiya. Antarkalapiya vayu. So when we know that can be felt as bodies, in bodies, especially when we make our bodies to move. When the inter-unitary bonding force, the apo, is lesser, the kalapas tend to travel or move freely. When the interbonding force is lesser, it gets lesser and lesser, more lesser than when it comes to liquids. What happens? This kalapa starts to move freely. This is how we explain air according to science, right? So when they are moving, these kalapas collectively, when they hit on a surface, for example, when they hit on a surface, it creates a certain kind of a pressure to the surface. That pressure is felt as a one unit, right? It is felt as one unit. One can say this is the pressure created by the kalapas themselves, separate kalapas. So there is no necessity of calling something interkalapiya vayu. Yeah, it's possible. But as they are acting as a one unit and causing a certain kind of a pressure, I would call them antarkalapiya vayu. The thing is, when it comes to moving of limbs of beings, For example, when this hand is to be raised here to here, when this hand is to be raised from one location to another, right? According to the Theravada tradition, kalapas, small kalapas happen to appear in this range. In this range. And these kalapas create a certain push towards the intended direction. So we call them, they have abundance of vayu, we call, right? So they create a certain push towards that direction. That direction is decided based on the mind, the intention. That link is made by vinyati. When the mind wants to lift the hand, if the air pushes downwards, when we want to lift, the hand may move backwards. If we want to sit, sometimes we may stand, for example, if the air moves to a different direction. It has to be directed, or it has to be directed towards the intended direction from the mind. So that is done by vinyati. That is done by vinyati. So lots of rupas happen to appear one after another. According to Lady Sayadaw, one generation of rupas thus created are not enough for this movement. So lots of chittas create lots of apo again and again. Then the enough pressure is made, the limb is moved. Limb will be moved. So the vayu, the amount of vayu increases. So at any given time, we can have only 51 types of kalapas according to their age. That's also something that is obvious according to Theravada. I shall explain this when we come to the lifespan of kalapas. It means there are kalapas, if kalapas have 17 mind moments, the lifespan, there can be kalapas of the first mind moment, second mind moment, third mind moment, and each mind moment has 3 sub-mind moments. So altogether there are 51 sub-mind moments of a kalapa. So there can be kalapas of the first sub-mind moment, second sub-mind moment, third sub-mind moment. So altogether there can be kalapas of different ages, different lifespans, 51. So they do pass away after 17 mind moments, so 51 sub-mind moments. But the kalapas that are created later, their force is higher than the previous ones. So that's why the limb is able to move the limbs. The Lady Sayadaw suggests if a hand is moved by just one single or few vitis, we may be moving like a Superman, because the mind is so quick, so rapid. So if the movements could happen to the same degree of rapidity of the mind, we may be able to move so quickly. And there will be no difference between a person who moves with the psychic power and us. Will be able to move so quickly. So it shows according to him. Just a one mind thought process is unable to make our body to move. Not even two. It has to happen many times. The reason is, the power has to get accumulated. Then the last mind, the example of the chariots, the chariot dragged by 7 horses was given, according to him, should be understood for the last mind moments, which is last chittaviti, the last mind process, which enables the movement, which makes the movement. But it doesn't mean that the movement happens with one process. So collectively speaking, the vayu of the following viti, created by following vitis, though we get an accumulation of vayu. It shows that this vayu is acting like a one unit. Vayu of this entire rupas, which cause this movement, acting as a one unit. Even the vayus which have already passed away has affected the vayus that are coming later. So they are affecting the other vayu. Because more that accumulation, the accumulation increases with the processes. But always there are only vayu of 17 ages, 51 ages. It's not that the Vayu is accumulated and the number of Kalapas are increasing. The number of Kalapas would normally be static. While the old Kalapas pass away, new Kalapas would come up. But always, there are only Vayu, Kalapas of 51 ages. It shows that there is a Vayu is affecting beyond the Kalapas. So with this force, when the accumulation is enough, the accumulation of force is enough, the limb starts to move. Yeah. Then the next point is, we also discussed, when a Kalapa, a moving Kalapa, strikes at another Kalapa, moving Kalapa strikes at another Kalapa, what happens? The Vayu, the amount of Vayu is higher here, so it causes, amount of Vayu is higher. This causes to increase the Vayu of the second, and it starts to move. It also shows that Vayu effects beyond these borders. So these are the explanations that I would like to give about the Apo and Vayu today. Tomorrow I'll be discussing about Patavi and Tejo, and also then how to understand the four great elements in a Sarira, in another angle. So where am I heading towards? Now someone can ask questions. How should we explain this one? Patthana, how should we explain this one? The basic studies that we had. I'll bring some evidences tomorrow, shall give, that even great Abhidhamma scholars have indicated this kind of approach to the Rupas, taking it as a one unit, the entire body as a one unit. Because it is not possible for us to explain the existence, the qualities of the four great elements only based on the module, the Kalapa module, which have their independent existence apart from each other. They have a relationship with each other. If Kalapas are explained as independent units, separated from each other, separated from the space, and which has no relationship with each other, we cannot explain the existence of physical bodies. We cannot explain how a Santana works. We cannot explain how a physical body is kept in a one shape without the substance getting scattered in the space. So in the end, we mentioned in the beginning, the previous, till now, we discussed how Rupas exist within a Kalapa. The hardness, then we have Tejo, then Vayu, Apo is holding them, and Vayu is pushing them. Right? So within a Kalapa we can observe it. Now we can come into a body of Kalapa. This is where I am heading towards. That's, I have to say, where I am heading actually. Tomorrow we shall discuss about this point. So there are Kalapas with Patavi, Tejo in each of them. And then we have Apo holding these qualities into the Kalapa. Then we also have Vayu, which makes them extended. Now, we also, as a one unit, take it as a one unit, we also has a certain kind of effect of Patavi in this unit. It can be felt. There is a bondage between the Kalapas. Apo And then we can also observe sometimes these kalapas collectively as a body affects the outer surface. Tomorrow we shall talk how certain kind of a heat, tejo, can be found within them, effects of them. So now take it as a one unit. Within this unit, you are observing the four great qualities. To my understanding, in meditation, in practical meditation, the four great elements felt. Now, one more thing, if the heat increases, the interunitary bond is broken, what happens? This entire body may manifest liquidity quality. This is not I'm talking about the bondage between them, the liquid quality, the flowing quality. So in meditation, think, we are not going into the level of kalapas. We can feel how this is flowing, how this body is hard, that something cannot go through. We can feel a heat inside ourselves. We can see how this body is making a pressure to the outside, how this is kept in one meditator to be a bloated thing. So in most of the cases, what we feel is these are the interunitary four great elements. I call it antarkalapiya. Mahabhuta. These are kalapiya Mahabhuta. That is four elements inside kalapa. Four great elements inside kalapa. So normally in our meditation, what we see, what we experience, most of the time, not always, sometimes the Mahabhuta of the four, the kalapas can also be felt. In most of the cases, what we feel, to my understanding, is this interunitary kalapa, effects of these kalapas. Someone can ask, can kalapa exist beyond the, can Mahabhuta exist beyond the kalapa? I'm telling, what I'm saying is a certain kind of a effect can be seen. And in some cases, even we can say these are the realities themselves, even beyond the kalapas. So in such a case, if someone asks, how should we understand them? You have to take it as a one unit. You have to take it as a one unit. And the next point is, Patthana doesn't explain everything, right? Because for example, even the support given by Tejo to the Itujarupa has not been explained in Patthana. It's a very obvious and a very prominent relationship. Tejo is producing Itujarupa. You cannot explain it based on Patthana. There is no Pachaya which explains that. So likewise, Patthana is not an inclusive or exhaustive explanation of the causes. So in such a case, in this kind of a case, I would suggest to take it as a one unit. And then the question comes, how these units, how these qualities are supporting each other. There is a question for that. You cannot explain the mutual support given by each and every quality in such a unit. The mutual support can be clearly explained within a kalapa. It can be explained within a kalapa. So personally, my understanding is Patthana explains about the kalapa itself. About the kalapa itself. But this is what we practically see. And this is what we practically understand or experience when we do meditation. We can feel the hardness in our body. We can see, we can feel the cohesion, how the particles are kept in a one shape, to a confined space. And also we can feel the heat, and also we can feel how this body is bloated to a certain extent. So yeah, so this is where I'm heading. So I will conclude the lecture, today's lecture. We were talking, it was a quite interesting one, I assume. And so we were talking about the interunitary elements. And this was our beginning. Rupa to Kalapa, Kalapa to Santana, generations, but Kalapa to Sarira and also Santana. We are here at the moment. Then how interunitary cause forces can be observed. What are the examples we can find within the doctrine? These are three examples I gave. And then how apo can be experienced within a material body, inside a kalapa and between the kalapas, but still inside a body, right? Inside the body. And then how vayu can be explained. So we can call antarkalapiya as also saririya, something related to the body. Saririya mahabhuta also we can call it. Yeah. So this will be the lecture. These all suggest that it's just forces, just qualities are existing as a body. It's not something called a one substance. Whether it's inside the kalapa or whether it's between the kalapas, it doesn't matter. All the qualities are just existing. There is no one substance or a person or a self. Just 4 great elements are existing. And it shows us there's no someone called I or myself according to the tradition. And our aim is to understand this body as a combination of 4 great elements, and you can get rid of the self view regarding the body, based on the body. Yeah, that will be the lecture. I would open the forum for a discussion. I think there will be a lot of questions today.
Okay, sadhu. Thank you so much, Bhante. Yes, very interesting lecture, Bhante. I would love to request you to explain the following, I guess the problem. So we know that in the Abhenya, right?
Yeah.
So when a person, with a meditator, he wants to, dive into the earth, and from my understanding is that he's going to enter into the jhana, taking the apo kasina as the object. So how are we going to explain that based on this, theory, Bhante?
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned, according to this theory, the interunitary apo has to reduce, but then the liquidity increases. So that's what he's doing. So when the interunitary apo reduces, automatically the liquidity apo increases. So when the liquidity apo is there, you can merge into this. So what's theoretically explaining, with the apo kasina, he's causing the rupa to change. Then the question comes very like a contradiction, or it becomes something which is unexplainable, because a person with abhiññāna, with his apo, with the kasina of apo, causes the rupa, the material rupa, to change. He causes these forces to change. So interunitary apo is reduced. At the same time, the liquidity apo increases, and he causes it to be a liquid, and he may be able to plunge us into this. But another person may plunge in, then he may not dip in. He will just hit, and he will get hurt. So this is called a subjective sort of an experience. Now, subjective experiences are also subject. Now, we mentioned that in the beginning, the reality is objective according to the Theravada tradition. Whether someone sees or not, this computer exists here if we leave it and go away. So it exists regardless of our observation. But there are few places the subjective experience is known. Like, for example, a demon, a peta, goes into a water while other people are taking bath. The peta may see it as a hot rock, and so it's based on the karma. The experience changes. So the book says to him it is a hot rock, for us it is water. Then, as you said, in the abhiññāna, a person with apo kasina, mastered apo kasina, will be able to change the functioning of the rupas in that material stuff, and he may be able to plunge in. But another person, for another person, still the unitary apo is stronger and it acts as solid. The interunitary patavi would prevent him from going through. But for the person with the abhiññāna, he'll be able to plunge in. I don't know whether
but this,
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But so do you think that he's gonna use the apenya to change the I mean, you would say the
Unitary. Okay.
bond? Yes. Within his, or the bonds between the I guess maybe you could say elements of the earth.
I didn't get your question.
Yes, so he's going to use the apenya to change the bonds. I mean the bonds between the elements in his own body, or the bonds between the elements in the earth.
That's a very good question. That's something that I didn't think about, because the book says what I would say. The book says he changes the earth, but if you make the approach other way around, that makes sense actually. Thank you for that suggestion actually, because if he changes his body, then he'll be able to move while another person may not be able to plunge in. It makes sense to me when you said that. It made sense to me suddenly that it is a very good approach to explain. Otherwise, what we say, Dr. Ryan, is the book says he changes the earth, but that is something unexplainable. Why it's still hard for someone. So if the reality is objective, if it is changed, it has to be changed to everyone, right? Right.
Yes.
So it's a new approach that I never thought about it. If he's changing his own body, it makes sense actually. It makes sense. Yeah. But I'm unable to give you an answer, because what the book says is he's changing the earth.
Right. That's what I read as well. Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, sadhu.
The next question is, what criteria to make Mahabhuta an antara kalapiya, not kalapiya, apart from being non-coexistent?
From being non-existent.
Yes, apart from being non-existent. Then what criteria are to make the Mahabhuta an antara kalapiya, not kalapiya?
It means, I think the question is how the Antara Kalapiya Mahabhuta is existing. Why it seems like it should be non-existing. Is it the question?
I guess that is the difference between Antara Kalapiya and Kalapiya. But so you make the difference between those two, right?
Right. That's what.
So Mahabhuta can be both, because, as you said, this is how I understand the question. So I'm just rephrasing the question. So what this person is asking is that, so Mahabhuta can be either Kalapiya or Antara Kalapiya. So what are the criteria to make the Mahabhuta Antara Kalapiya, but not Kalapiya?
Yeah, I think that's what I explained, right? These are the criteria, was all the observations that we have. And these are the evidences, the three evidences that I brought that shows that the Mahabhuta, effects of Mahabhuta can be found beyond the borders of Kalapa. So the reasons are, when we observe the literature, we can find that such effects are felt, and some prominent scholars have explained the Mahabhutas based on the Sarira. Why something is so hard? Because of these effects of some other kalapas and other qualities. I shall explain this tomorrow. Then these are the evidences. It's not something that I arbitrarily created or based on my desire. From a long time before, I felt that the literature has information to suggest that the Mahabhutas are not only confined to the Kalapa. The first example is when a Rupa Kalapa with abundant heat get close to another group of Kalapas, the heat increases of another Kalapa. So it shows that there is a certain effect. So this effect, it's actually the effect is felt outside. So that effect, I termed it as Mahabhuta, because you cannot see something, if something affects in such a manner, It has to be called as something Mahabhuta. So it's not that, it's something I would call, we can call it a Mahabhuta, but it's something like a effect is, such qualities, characteristics are felt. Such characteristics are felt beyond the Mahabhuta. Then the thing is, the criteria for the ultimate realities in the Theravada tradition. What is a reality? I think we discussed this point. If something can be felt with mind, felt with wisdom, if something cannot be reduced into its components, not into its causes, the fluidity, scientifically would say, these are the causes of fluidity. It's not the reduction of fluidity into its parts. So therefore, these inter-kalapiya qualities can be felt with mind, with wisdom. So if something can be felt with wisdom and it is irreducible, this is the criteria to call something a reality. So therefore, the inter-kalapiya hardness, bonding nature, pushing nature, the heat, all can, and the flowing nature, all can be felt with wisdom. So if something is felt with wisdom, and if it is not reducible, if the quality itself is reducible. Now take about the chair. The idea of a chair is reducible into its component, not into its causes, from what it is made out of. Its composition can be known. The hardness, interkalapiya hardness, causes can be known, not the composition. Therefore, I took the stance to call them realities and to explain them as a one unit. So that was the criteria. The criteria to decide realities according to the Theravada tradition.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So the next question is, can Bhante please explain again the difference in function of interunitary apo versus interunitary vayo?
Interunitary apo is the bonding between two kalapas. Why one kalapa cannot be separated from another kalapa. So there is a certain kind of a bondage. I'll not be able to explain it because when we come from the body to the kalapas, we shall have a different perspective on this. Hopefully tomorrow or day after, on the next week. So the bondage between two kalapas are interunitary apo. Then when this reduces, a fluidity arises, a quality called fluidity. That is also interunitary apo, according to what I understand. Then interunitary vayo is something, one can say that vayo is the same kalapiya vayo, what I am explaining, right? What I am explaining. But when they are acting as a one unit, right? We can see as a body, there is a certain kind of a force. Someone can say that force is from separate individual kalapas. That is possible. It's possible to explain. But the thing is, when it comes to moving the limbs, now these kalapas arises and passes away. Then new kalapas do arise and pass away while we are making a movement. So number of the vayo, the quality of vayo is higher in the entire unit. In the entire unit, the quality of vayo is increasing. The pressure is increasing. So I shall explain that with a new slide. Now, for instance, if this is the functioning of the Mahabhutas, when we are moving a limb, for example, rupas arise and pass away. So while the other rupas are present, new rupas arise and pass away. While they are present, the new rupas arise and pass away. If we take, this is 51 sub-mind moments, right? Always there can be rupas of 51 ages. It means there can be a rupa with the first submind moment, second submind moment, third submind moment. There cannot be a rupa of the 52nd submind moment. So when the 51 rupas which I read the 51 submind moment passes away, a new rupa would appear. So always the how do we call it, the age limit, the age range of ages, range of their lifespan is 51. So there cannot be rupas more than this limit. So normally we would say it is not that different chittas would cause to arise more and more rupas. Normally the number would be static, right? So what happens is, when we consider, now this is the for instance, this is a one unit given any time. This is another unit, for example. So likewise, the amount of vayu here, the amount of vayu here and the amount of vayu in this unit has increased. So the pressure it is causing is getting higher. So when it comes to the threshold, the limb starts to move. So it's acting as a one unit. So it's the vayu is getting accumulated to some extent. So it shows that there is sort of an interunitary vayu. That is based on the time scale. Even the vayu which passed away has kept a certain effect to the kalapas that are arising. So arising at a later stage. Then what happens? Even within one group of body at any given time, it's acting as a one unit. It may cause, so it's causing the pressure, not as individual parts, as a one unit. But this one can clearly say the pressure is the addition of all the pressure caused by different kalapas. But still, I would prefer it as, talk it as a one unit. The entire unit is causing the force. So anyway, that is obviously open to debate. And even this someone can say, if someone brings the argument, with the time number of kalapas would increase, yes, then still it is a valid argument. But according to what I understand, normally the number of kalapas would be static, it would be the same, but the pressure would increase. So it shows that there is a vayu acting as a one unit. That is called the interunitary vayu. This is the difference.
Okay. Thank you, Sadhu. And the next question is, can Bhakti please give an illustration or a simile on how one can meditate until one can realize or see or feel the reality, the reality of the Tejo or your Apo of each individual kalapa?
To each individual kalapa, oh, that I am unable to explain, because according to what I have studied it is something beyond our range. Seeing an individual kalapa, it's what we do is we just imagine how a kalapa would be. It's an assumption what we are doing. We are unable to penetrate into the final kalapa with our wisdom. Maybe it's possible by someone like a Buddha, for sure, but not by someone like ordinary human beings. So what we are doing is, if we know that there should be some units within the body, that is something logical, it can be philosophically and also scientifically proven that there are certain units of the matter which are inseparable, the final fundamental units. So if a fundamental unit has these qualities, if you understand it and if you keep on meditating on this idea, now understand it theoretically is something, the first stage. Then we move on to the quality of hardness, our cohesion nature. And if we understand it clearly, so you will feel the quality of hardness. What is the quality of cohesion? Even while studying, someone may come into that level. Then you imagine how a kalapa is made out of these four qualities. Then if you think with touching the quality itself, not of a real kalapa, the idea of a quality, idea of patavi, idea of apo, And if you can imagine how a kalapa is made out of this, and the body is made out of these kalapa, that is called doing meditation into the kalapa level. It's an assumption. It's not a directly seeing. Because in vipassana meditation, it is not necessarily that you see the things as they are. What we have to see is the qualities as they are, not the things as they are. The hardness. For example, if someone leads the vipassana meditation based on 32 body parts, it's not necessarily that you see your kidney clearly. So how the book has given, it has given a simile. It has given a simile of some kind of natural substance, like a fruit. Heart is mentioned as some kind of a natural thing. So think like this. So that is what the Visuddhimagga has said. Imagine it like this. So having known that simile, we imagine this may be the quality, this may be the shape of our body. Because in those days, people didn't have all the photos of the inside the body. Only thing that after someone dies, they can open it up and see what are the body parts. Right? That's the only possibility. And that knowledge was there in the world, because they have surely opened up and see what it is. But some religions prohibited the opening up, especially the Christianity, as if I know the Christianity or some other religions prohibited the looking into it, but it was lately overcome by the society because it was very necessary for the advancement of medicine. So therefore, in the Buddhist practice, monks are not necessary to see them as they are. So what they are doing is they are assuming based on the scriptures. It says the bone, this bone is this shape, the bone in the other part has a different shape. So only the 5 parts that are outside the body can be seen. That is head hair, body hair, nail, teeth and the skin. Skin, there is another argument, because some says the chavi, we see the chavi, the outer layer of the skin is the inner layer. So according to some explanations, skin is white always, right? White or some sort of a color. I forgot the exact color. But the chavi, the outer layer, can change based on the person. So anyway, but normally we take the entire thing as the skin, right? So it is not necessarily that you see the body parts as it is. For example, if unknowingly you are having a problem in the kidney or a cancer or whatever problem, hopefully not, but while you are meditating, while we take into meditation, it's not, you just observe the kidney, you just imagine the kidney as a good functioning organ. Today we can imagine it based on the pictures that we have seen. It's much better now because we can assume it very clearly. But in those days, they were assuming it in the shape of some kind of a nut, right? Or pea. Pea means beans, right? Pea is, sorry, in Pei, in Myanmar, Pei, like a bean, sort of some kind of a shape. So that idea is enough. So in the same manner, it's not necessarily that you see the kalapa in its real form, just an imagination, assumption is enough to understand it. And that assumption is far too enough for someone to attain. The thing is, we are imagining the quality. We have to see the qualities as they are. It's not that we have to see the things as they are. So therefore, for Savakas, to my understanding, it is impossible for someone to reach to the level of Kalapa. Some teachers say that you can reach to the level of Kalapa. To my understanding, it is not possible. It is something in the scope of a Buddha. What we are doing is assuming how the Kalapas exist, but with the idea, with the clear idea of the qualities.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The next question is so the reality is the quality itself.
Yeah.
Therefore, what Bhante refers to as effect, Patavi in the unit is the Patavi between Kalapa themselves, right? Then there would be no space element, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's another very good question. It's another very good question. So if the Patavi, what we talk, interunitary Patavi is something between the two, how do you call, Kalapas, there cannot be any space according to that. Yes, that's true. The space, idea of space is known based on the kalapas themselves. The idea of space is known based on the kalapas themselves. But the idea of, when we come to the interunitary patavi, the idea of space is where the elements are not existing. For example, if you go to the sutras, I think personally the sutras were based on this kind of an explanation. The space between the open space of the mouth, open space of the ear, and all these are the space element. So when we go into interunitary level, the space has to be the space between two physical stuff. But if you talk about the kalapas, the space is the gap between these two. So it's another very nice aspect of thinking. When we are based on the units separately, so we see a space. But when we are talking about the unit as a one thing, we talk the kalapas as separate units, we can see the space, we can observe the space. But if we take it as a one physical body, as a sarira, the two sariras, this gap between two sariras are considered as space without focusing on the air within that. Without focusing on the air. Someone can ask the question, according to the Buddha's teachings even, Buddha said air is 6 types of air. The air that flows up, down, and within the bowels and so forth. But the openings, like the open of the mouth, there are 9 openings in our body. So these are the spaces. These are the akasa dhatu. So that is based on the explanation of bodies. So the body of this, inside the mouth, down layer of the mouth, the upper layer of the mouth, there is a gap between these two. This is considered as a space. So yeah, it's another very important aspect. So the space element is based on the units. So that's why in Patthana, I personally feel the elements have been explained as kalapiya, not interkalapiya. Been explained as kalapiya.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu. Please go ahead, Saleh.
Okay, good morning, Bhante.
Good morning, Saleh.
So regarding the two terminology, Galapiya and Antaragalapiya, I couldn't find it in the Dipitaka.
Yeah, you cannot find. You cannot find this word.
So you made it by yourself?
Yeah, the word I made it, the name I made it, but the qualities can be observed very clearly.
I see. Okay.
The word was made by me.
Oh, okay. So the next question is, as Bhante said, as a meditator, we don't need to see the Galabas like clearly, but we through our imagination. But if it not be the case, but we will talk about the Yatha Buddha Jnana. So that means we have to translate the knowledge to see the quality as they are. We cannot translate the knowledge to see the things as they are.
Yes, the thing is, Yatha Bhuta Jnana Dassana is seeing the qualities as they are and seeing their causes as they are. This is the Yatha Bhuta Jnana Dassana. So when I say things, think the quality, now for instance, now if we are able to see the things, how should we make the board, how should we make the limitation? For example, think about the Chakku Vijnana as a certain reality. So this Chakku Vijnana has the functioning of seeing the object. So we are seeing it has the functioning of seeing a color. Then this Chakku Vijnana can be produced by a Kusala Vipaka or Akusala Vipaka. So if you want to see the thing as it really is, it's a Kusala Vipaka or Akusala Vipaka. So what sort of a karma causes this? So whether it's the karma of offering a flower, or offering some dana, or offering some, or practicing a sila. So if we go into details, there's no limitation in there. So only thing is, you understand the seeing quality. And it is not necessarily that you observe it in the present Chakku Vijnana while you open your eyes. Even when you closed it, you can still meditate on this quality. So therefore, Yatha Bhuta Jnana Dassana is seeing the qualities of the realities as they are, and understanding is not just seeing, understanding them as non-self. That is the vital point. Understanding them as not self. There are just mere qualities. But whether the patavi of the nail and the patavi of the skin are two different qualities and they are different from each and every place, we don't need to examine into such a level. That's what I mean. And it's not necessary to see the color of the kidney clearly to distinguish it from the color of the heart. If you're observing based on the 32 body parts, because the kalapas of these parts have a different color. So if we are about to see the things as they are, the amount that we have to see is immense. Why it's only 4 great elements? Why shouldn't we see the color, the taste, the smell? All has to be felt then in their own quality. So if color is a rupa ayatana, saddha is sound, saddha ayatana, gandha is gandha ayatana. So if it is not necessary to see rupa ayatana into that level specifically to what really it is not, means what a specific kala in a one rupa kalapa, it is not necessary to see the pottabha ayatana into that level even. So what we are seeing, what we are understanding is the mere quality. So as you said, Jali, so when we say yata bhuta jnana darsana, seeing the natures, qualities as they are, as impermanent, as non-self, and also seeing their causes and understanding these effects are non-self. So that is called the yata bhuta jnana darsana.
And also, another question is that, so if according to this explanation, like we know in the our practice, right? Mm-hmm. So when they reach to the vipassana knowledge, especially when they examine like rupas, so first, generally the Sayadaw suggests them to study first.
Yeah.
So that is also because of one of the reasons.
Yes, exactly. Like when you study, you can easily imagine, you can understand it. So otherwise, if, for example, if someone is seeing the kalapas to that level, that person doesn't need to do a body scan to understand his sickness, right? If we're seeing it as in that level, you don't need scans, you don't need anything, because if there's a cancer, it has to be a distortion of kalapas. The kalapas has to change. So he or she will be able to exactly see that my kalapas in this part are different from other parts. So maybe this is some cause or of problem, and he or she may go and find out a cancer. So I don't see such kind of experiences. So in most of the cases, what I feel is, when we look into this with a high quality of concentration, when we are looking into the body with the knowledge that we have gained, it's an understanding. You imagine or you assume this is how it is. If you look into the commentaries, the vipassana technique, which I shall explain in future, it's only based on assumption. Now think about the sammasana jnana. It says you have to contemplate the life, the first 10 years of the life, second 10 years, third 10 years, till the last decade, till we have lived for, imagining that we live for 100 years. Now, for example, I'm in my 30s. So can't I contemplate on my 40s? Can't I contemplate about the 50s of this life? Yes, can, according to Sammasana Jnana. It is said that you have to contemplate. So what does it mean? It means, does I know exactly how my rupa would be in age 40? Should I need to have dibba chakku to see that? Is it possible? Is it surely determined that my rupa would be such and such? No. So therefore, all the vipassana is based on the object. If I say imagination, this can degrade the quality of vipassana. As I don't prefer to use this word, I'm finding a word within myself to use for it. Based on the knowledge, you understand this is how the rupa functions. So one can say it's sort of an imagination. One can say it's sort of an assumption. But the thing is, as long as we touch the quality, the hard quality, it is felt. As long as it is felt, it is an object of vipassana. As long as the quality of cohesion is felt, as long as the quality of the consciousness is knowing is felt, whether you see a specific consciousness or not, it's an object of vipassana. Otherwise, if you study the Theravada Vipassana, that's why I said in the beginning of the course, Theravada Vipassana has its own fundamentals. If you look into the fundamentals of the Theravada tradition, we find it doesn't say about a direct observation. It says about observation directly observing the qualities, not the things as they are.
Thank you for this, sadhu. Yeah, I see that we went over time a little bit. But
Okay.
there is one more question. Are you going to take it?
Okay, yeah, we'll finish it then.
Okay, okay. So the question is, when doing walking meditation, how do we apply what we learned today to observing the four great elements?
It's another very practical question. So for walking meditation, according to the, we can say according to the experiences or according to what the book says, we can see four great elements, the abundance of it. So when we come into Vipassana, there are two ways that you see all the four great elements at one given time, not at the same time, at one given posture, or you see the abundant element. Both is okay. For example, someone sees, for some, seeing the hair as hardness is enough. So some, seeing the entire body as hardness, cohesion, bloating nature and heat is enough. For some, they have to separate in the body parts. So in this, having separated the body parts even, some would see hair as just a hard particle, hard stuff, hardness. You have to focus on the hardness. And still the concept is there, the idea of hair is there. It is not a problem as long as you focus on the quality of hardness. It's not a panyati because you are focusing at the hardness. The word you may use, the hair, it's not a problem because it's clearly mentioned in the commentaries and also in the Patisambhida Magga. Then for some, contemplating hair as hardness is not enough. You have to see all the four great qualities in the hair. Right? All the four great qualities in the hair. For some, not the separate body parts, all the 20 body parts of the body can be taken as hard at once, not separately. All the 20 hard body parts as hardness. And the 12 apo parts as apo, the liquid parts. For some, taking all the 20 hard stuff, still he has to contemplate on all the four great elements in them. All the 20 parts have Patavi, Apo, Tejo and Vayu. All the 12 liquid parts have Patavi, Apo, Tejo and Vayu. It shows that how you focus depends on yourself, your character, your ability, your wisdom and so forth. So then, so in some cases you have to focus on all the four great elements. In some cases, not at the same time, separate times, but at the same contemplation. In some cases, you can focus on the abandoned element. So I would suggest in the beginning, if you are doing the walking meditation, you have to do it very, very calmly and get into a certain concentration. And there are two ways you can start contemplating or you can start feeling it. The feeling comes with concentration. The contemplation can be done even from the beginning. So if you keep on doing meditation, rising, moving and keeping, rising, moving, lifting, moving and placing, lifting, moving and placing. When you keep on doing that for some time, your mind get concentrated and you will start to feel how the four great elements are working in such a step. So when we lift the foot, it becomes lighter. Lightness is given by Tejo according to the tradition. So the simile is why the fire moves up. Fire moves up always. It never blames, the flame never goes to the, unless there is a force given, it never goes to the horizontally. It is vertically, right? It goes up always. So it's lighter than Vayu even. Vayu moves. Vayu flows. So the lightness that you feel is due to heat. Tejo, I would call Tejo. So even you see the effect of the Tejo, even if you feel the Tejo itself at heat, or if you feel it as the effect of lightness, still you have seen Tejo. It's not need to distinguish these two. You don't need to distinguish the characteristic, the function and the manifestation. Even if you see any of them, you are seeing the reality. So if you feel the lightness, you have to understand this is Tejo, functioning of Tejo. So when you feel the lift is being taken forward, you feel a push or you feel it's moving. Moving is the effect, function of Vayu. So you feel the push, that is the quality of Vayu. Whatever you feel, you have to understand this is Vayu, abundant Vayu. Then when we are placing the leg, we see a heaviness. Heaviness is Apo. The teachers say, some teachers say, Apo is heavier than Patavi. And that's why solid can be kept in one shape, but always the liquid drips. It drips down. right? So it's much heavier. So apo is felt as heaviness, and when you place it on the earth, when you place the foot on the earth, on the floor, you can see the solidity. That is solidness of the earth, and also at the same time solidness of the feet also can be felt. So you don't need to distinguish these two qualities. Just if you feel the solidness, that is patavi. So lifting, while lifting it gets lighter, tejo. While moving it gets pushed or it's moving, that is vayo. When you steps it down, it gets heavier, that is apo. When you place it, you can see the solid quality, that is patavi. So that's how you understand. Then if you keep on focusing on these qualities and understand, the idea of leg would disappear. You have to do it till the idea of leg would disappear. Some may feel these 4 qualities at the level, at the part of the ankle part, below the ankle. Some may feel it below the entire thing, below the knee. For some, the entire leg, or for some, the entire part that is moving, not the other part, because when we are lifting and moving, the other part is stiffer most of the time. The other leg is stiff, right? Always the patavi increases. So the part which is moving, you can feel these differences. So whatever part is felt to you, you should know that lightness is caused by tejo. Lightness is, even you understand lightness is tejo, is okay, even though it's the function. The heaviness is apo. The pushing nature is, or moving is vayo, and the hard solid nature which makes you gives you a good grip or a stance is patavi. So when you keep on contemplating on them, the idea of a body, idea of a leg would start to disappear, and you start to get into the idea that these only 4 great elements are functioning properly, and that functioning is made due to the intention of the mind. Then later you have to see the intention of the mind. Then you will see only nama. Because of nama, rupa is moving. The nama rupa combination will be understood, and the nama rupa separation will be known.
Okay, thank you for this, Sadhu. Yes, I think please
Okay.
conclude the session.
Okay. So thank you very much for listening, and we shall move into the patavi and tejo with more information from tomorrow. May this merit help us to attain the nibbana as quick as possible. Buddha sasanang chirantittatu, Buddha sasanang chirantittatu, Buddha sasanang chirantittatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.